started, I'll just go over the list of staff members who are with us tonight. With us, we have Ruth Nordegraf, Director, Housing and Social Services, Muhammad Hassan, Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Manager, Mitchell Grange, Manager, Housing and Homelessness. Ian Sullivan is our host this evening, as well as myself, Julie McCarty-Jansman, Committee Clerk. And Mr. Chair, we currently have no members of the public with us, so I will turn it over to you to begin the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Clerk. The meeting to order. And the first item is approval of the agenda. Do we have any mover? Councilor Holland, Councilor Sanic. Any additions, subtractions of the sort? Not seeing any. All those in favor of the agenda, you show your hands. Okay, a couple of hesitations there. The number three, item 3 is confirmation of minutes of December 8th, our last meeting, 2021. Do I have a mover? Councilor McLaren. Councilor Sanic is seconding. Any questions? Seeing none, please vote in favor of the minutes. Thank you. 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Anyone figured out how to make money here? No, seeing none. Okay, we'll pass on. 5, delegations, none. 6, briefings, none. 7, business, we're down to it. We have 1 report received from the Housing and Homeless Advisory Committee, terms of reference review and pilot honorarium program. So, does staff have anything they wish to say? Ms. Nordegraf, turn her camera on. So, presume there's something there.
Well, that's typically the cue to call, right? Good evening, everybody. To you, Mr. Chair. Just really quick, and as identified, also on the call are Mitchell Grange and Mohammed Hassan. So this is a report that's kind of a compilation of 2 items, both a process that we've gone through with the Housing and Homelessness Committee to review the terms of reference that were outdated for a couple of different reasons, but also because of the needs and the kind of the key issues that are arising, obviously, in the housing and homelessness portfolio. So we had a pretty significant process that we followed with members of the committee to go through the process, to go through the terms of references. And Mr. Grange can share a little bit more on that process. The second item in the same report is actually a report back and a recommendation to actually follow up on a motion that was made in June 2021, actually by Councilor McLaren, on kind of looking at a way to compensate or support people with lived or living experience in the housing and homelessness realm to participate in city committees. So we've done actually quite a bit of work on that as well. And with the newly formed EDI division and the EDI work, we've also incorporated some of that. So that's the second part of this report, which is basically asking to record the recommendation to start a 1-year pilot project with the Housing and Homelessness Committee, and then report back to council with kind of potential next steps of the outcomes. So 2 components in 1 report for your review. I will ask Mohammed or Mitchell if they would like to add anything as well.
Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Grange.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I think what I can do is just provide a brief overview of section 1 of the report, and then turn it over to my colleague, Mohammed Hassan. So back in February of 2021, the Housing and Homelessness Committee directed the committee and staff to form a working group to review the terms of reference, as Director Nordegraf had indicated. So that took place. The forming of the working group was to be comprised of 4 members of the committee to be selected by the committee to work with staff, which was myself. That happened at the June 10th meeting of last year. And then we met 4 or 5 times throughout the remainder of the year to refine and update the terms of reference. So we focused on 4 sections, 3 sections, the reporting structure. First being with the understanding the importance of housing and to provide a more timely feedback to council on housing matters. We've identified that, or we're proposing that the Housing and Homelessness Committee report directly to council rather than through this committee. We reviewed the schedule of meetings, and again, with the number of meetings currently set quarterly throughout the year, in an effort to be more visible and communicate better to the public and be on top of more housing and homelessness related matters, we're proposing that the committee meet bi-monthly. And then lastly, we looked at the composition of the members. There was some outdated agencies and nonprofit corporations that were still identified as the terms of reference. So we removed them and added added 5 members of the public at large, with preference given to members of the Indigenous community, individuals with lived or living experience of homelessness, youth, veterans, and members of the 2S LGBTQ plus community. We also did some engagement out to the community through the Cities Get Involved page, as well as hard copy surveys were sent out to all of the local agencies who support in the housing and homelessness sector. It didn't yield many responses, some responses more about the systemic kind of issues that we're aware of within the housing and homelessness sector, but not any feedback specifically about the terms of reference that we have drafted. So that's kind of section 1. And now I'll ask Mohammed to come on and give an overview to section 2 for you. Well, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chair, through you. Thank you very much, Michelle, for the first part of the report. The second part takes a little bit more in-depth dive into some of the community organizations and other municipalities in Ontario and what is their compensation model. So what we did in this section was we send out a call to different community organizations and municipalities and ask them for their compensation structure and if there's any additional support they provide to such committees and boards, and what is the impact that they have experienced from that. So we received some responses from community organizations such as Family and Children's Services of Frontenac, Lennox, and Eddington, KFL&A Community Drug Strategy, as well as City of Toronto, Dufferin County, Region of Waterloo. These are the respondents that shared a variety of models that they use to compensate such committees and memberships on those committees. Some of the responses were very interesting, that while there is no policy in these municipalities, or there is no process as well, but their staff is interested in learning from City of Kingston recommendation once it's approved. So the list of these municipalities is as follows: Town of Newmarket, Regional Municipality of Durham, Niagara Region, City of Vaughan, and City of London. The estimated maximum total cost that of this recommendation would be $5,000 gross for the honoraria for the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee pilot program. And it will come from Housing and Social Service 2022 operating budget. If there is any question or clarification that needed, I'm willing to answer that.
Any questions from the committee? Yes, Councillor Holland.
questions on the entire presentation from staff?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So I just look at the terms of reference. I mean, so robust compared to what the committee was in the past, especially in terms of transparency and access to information from the public, which is fantastic. The composition of the committee, I was wondering, and not that I'm suggesting that there, I mean, I know there's an ideal committee size, there's only so many, suggesting that we include other groups, although, oops. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, can you see me?
Yep.
Weird. I can't see you. Okay. Well, thanks. Okay, it's back. Sorry, that was very strange. So, but I'm wondering about persons living with a disability, and given that they're not indicated as one of these representative groups, whether there is involvement from Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee with this new group as well, or that kind of thing.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Yes, I think so.
So
Well, we have three choices. So.
I will start. I might ask my colleagues to jump in as well, but the one thing I will say is that as part of the kind of the new approach, we also would like to have, not that this is an answer to the question, Councillor Holland, that right away, but we also want to make sure that one of the meetings annually will allow for all the different services that work in the system. So including, for instance, our colleagues that work in the developmental services or other kind of groups that are really like, honestly, not a straight kind of connection there, but to have really a kind of an ongoing annual input on kind of a bit of the state of the union or lay of the land of different services that are, working within the housing and homelessness sector. So although that is not necessarily adding another member to the table, it definitely, I think, will allow the committee to continue to have every year an update from various equity seeking or barrier populations. I know what we have done as well is this draft terms of reference has also been discussed with the EDI committee, and they have reviewed it as well. And in addition, we definitely have, as a corporation, we have committed to accessibility across the board. So definitely a good comment. I will, obviously there's so many different groups and so many different representation, but we're trying through all of those pieces to make sure that there is an ability for people to share updates and provide input in the committee.
Thanks. Yeah, and sorry, but through you, Mr. Chair, if I might just, again, one more question. So yeah, the fact that it's a really good point, because I know that the EDI committee is doing great work, but starting. Also, there are the folks at, oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank? I'm thinking of another overlap with accessibility. Oh, nominations. Okay, so that's the other part of this process. So the EDI committee has been working with nominations to ensure greater representation of marginalized groups across the board. So is that something, I mean, there are spots here, but for the community member spots, is that something that, say, the nominations committee would be involved in looking at?
Thank you. And again, I don't want to, through you, Mr. Chair, I don't want to speak for the clerk's office, but I do know actually at the same meeting that we were discussing this report with the EDI committee, there was also a conversation around the nominations process. And I don't know if my colleague would like to jump in here, because definitely not my expertise.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you. On the same day when this report was presented to EDI committee, the nomination related report was also presented, and the discussion was about the involvement of EDI committee into the nomination committee and how those panels will work slightly differently. So definitely that lens of equity, diversity, and inclusion will be very much front and center of these recruitments and nomination process, because there will be at least one EDI committee member part of these panels for these nominations. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, I knew that there was so much work happening all at once to incorporate those objectives. Thank you very much.
Councillor Neal.
Thank you very much, and I totally support this initiative. So what I'm about to say is not a reflection on this. I also, I believe Councillor Holland was the MAC member before me, but for some years now, I've been on MAC, for instance, and I know the volunteer members of that group have lived experiences and have challenges as well. And I'm just curious about the possibility in future, after I'm gone, but in future, having perhaps some recognition for some of those other committees where people have those lived experiences. And I'm just wondering if people with what used to be called handicaps live a very challenged life. Most of them are too proud to ever say that there are issues that affect their ability to attend meetings. Perhaps have we looked into the possibility of making it criteria based and expanding to other committees?
Mr. Chair, through you, that's a really good question, Councillor Neal. And since this is a pilot program, we will be studying it at the end of Housing and Homelessness Committee's term. And the intention is to implement it all across the board with all level of advisory committees under the City of Kingston. And the intention is to make all these appointments barrier-free and encouraging people with lived experiences to come forward and share their voices in the process to
That's great. And my dog's timing is terrible. Somebody must be at my door. I'll be right back.
So
Go ahead. Finish.
Thank you very much. So, it's definitely one of the outcome of this recommendation that we will study the outcomes from this 1-year tenure of this this committee, and we will come back with the recommendations for all other committees, including housing and homelessness, accessibility, and others. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions? I've got a few questions. Make it as quick as possible. You came up, Mr. Hassan, you came up with the cost is $5,000. One, how did you arrive at that amount, and how is it distributed? I see Ms. Nordegraf has got her hand up, but
yeah, I believe Ms. Nordegraf will be able to respond to this much better.
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. What we've done is obviously we've identified an honoraria per meeting, which definitely is not, considered an hourly rate, or it's really based on, there's preparatory work, there is, ongoing communication between meetings. So we use that kind of rate based on some of the findings that that we saw in other examples. Then we looked at kind of the worst case, I would say worst case scenario of number of meetings and maybe some additional meetings, and looked at number of members of the public that would be eligible for the honoraria and did the math. We, again, also were a little bit, I would say, generous, just to make sure we were not budgeting not too low, but that's how we came up with the amounts.
Right. So we really don't know how this is going to work. We're going to test drive it here for the next year. Correct?
So, it is a pilot. That's why, we don't want to commit to this ongoing. We also want to understand, is this going to help to kind of attract and support more individuals that may not have been interested or felt like they were not able to because of barriers such as childcare or working 2 or 3 different jobs. So we definitely, I mean, we want to try this and see if this is going to help. Again, based on the delegations that were made to council back in June 2021, definitely also have found a lot of kind of good evidence in what it could mean to the members that participate and now have that opportunity to participate. But no, I mean, very, very transparent and honest. This is the first time that we're looking at this in a city committee. We do have some experience, obviously, with providing some type of honoraria when we have any focus groups, or we provide gift cards, or we provide other ways of supporting individuals. So no, we don't know after a year what the outcomes will be, and that's why we really want to try it and report back.
I think the representation on the committee is important in trying to cover off as many disadvantaged groups as possible, or compromised groups by their conditions. I mean, what are we expecting? In the context that we have an absolute lack of housing, and particularly affordable housing and homelessness housing, what are we expecting this committee to achieve insofar as the people representing are there to represent the views of people that need housing, but they don't know a lot about producing housing? So I'm wondering how that's supposed to work.
So I think it's a great question. I think there's a couple of thoughts that I would be happy to share. First of all, I think it is important to, I think we need to make sure that we actually are inclusive and provide an opportunity for those individuals that have felt that they were potentially barriered for reasons like, for instance, compensation, not being able to make the meeting because of other financial constraints. So, I mean, I think what we're hoping to achieve is to have a broader representation around the table of people that are feeling, and I know honoraria is one part, and I think that another point that was made around the nomination piece and the broader accessibility is certainly, it's multi-layered. So it's not just the honoraria piece, it's also other elements to make sure people feel included and safe to be able to contribute. But again, based on the work that we've done and kind of the committees that we've looked at, we see that it definitely has provided for those committees a more input from people that are really those that have the lived experience or living experience in the sector. I cannot comment on, I mean, yes, individuals would not necessarily be experts in developing housing or experts in various kind of elements of the system, but I do think they can really be helpful in understanding the real need, or if certain directions or proposals would work for people that actually have been experiencing homelessness or might still be experiencing homelessness. I see my colleague has also would like to add something, and I'm happy because I think from the EDI component, I think there's a couple more items to add.
Mr. Chair, through you, thank you very much, Ms. Nordegraaf. I just want to bring this committee's attention to that apart from 5 members or public at large, in this recommendation, there are representatives from County of Frontenac, Kingston Home Builders Association, and a Community Advisory Board on Homelessness as established by United Way, Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Eddington. So there is definitely going to be some level of expertise from the other side where people can pinpoint and come up with solutions. And the objective that we are trying to achieve is bridging the gap of end user and service provider so that both can work together and come up with better proposals and solutions. Thank you.
Okay. I've seen more people quit this committee because we didn't produce anything. Okay. And whatever all these people want when they represent, whether they're represented on committee or not, is they want a home. They want an apartment, a house, whatever. And on occasion, we've had people on here who, when it comes to producing housing, know what they're talking about. But, and what's all the different aspects involved are difficult. So that's why I find the representation, not that expanding it is any problem, not that you don't have to have a limit on the number of spots because it becomes unwieldy. But like I said, I've seen people quit because we didn't do anything. So I want to know whether the housing department is going to come home back with a plan to develop housing next term.
So thank you for that question, Mr. Chair. I just would like to maybe add a couple of thoughts. So first of all, I think over the last year, the Housing and Homelessness Committee has really gotten back into, I think, a good track of not only providing much more reports and much more information to the committee for feedback. For instance, we have very intensely involved the committee in the homelessness system review process. We also continue to, and as also a new kind of approach, are providing the committee with a lot of information on the various standing, or provide a standing update every meeting on every area of the housing continuum, because yes, there's absolutely, obviously a focus on adding housing supply, but there's also a lot of work being done on the homelessness system, the way we provide services, the modernization within the social housing portfolio. Just a kind of a comment on the housing supply. We do, and I think with the change of the terms of reference and having, should this committee also support that, there will be a direct reporting mechanism to council rather than through this committee. And it also will meet more regularly. So that way there's also more ability to kind of be working in a more timely fashion. So I think that will help with also having the committee be more, have more ability to actually provide comments on reports in a more timely fashion. And the last thing I will say is the housing supply component. I know the Mayor's Task Force on Housing has provided a lot of recommendations, and between the various departments that is worked on, we've provided we've never had as many housing units and bedrooms approved as the last 2 years. And we are continuing to work on ways to continue to have housing supply or housing projects. I think I might have mentioned this in council a few months ago. We are planning on providing this Housing and Homelessness Committee a report on housing supply as well in Q2. So there's certainly a lot of things that are moving forward, and that this Housing and Homelessness Committee will hopefully play a more active role in before it would go to council.
Okay, is there anyone else from the committee have anything to say? Okay, I think I have to read this thing. It's very complicated. I'm just hang on while I go back and do this. Okay, this is terms of reference review and pilot honoraria program. The Arts, Recreation, Community Policies Committee recommend to council the bylaw attached as Exhibit A to report number HHC-22-004, the bylaw to amend the bylaw number 2010-205, a bylaw to define the mandate and meeting procedures of committees established by the Corporation of the City of Kingston as amended. As amended, to add under scheduled meetings, one regular meeting of committees should be for the purpose of bringing together organizations specifically provide support to the housing and homeless sector, bring presentations to the committee. Be presented to council update the terms of reference for Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee, and staff implemented a pilot honoraria program for 1 year duration for the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee, supporting meaningful inclusion and compensation for the participation of the individuals who are homeless and or precariously housed and or have lived experience with homeless or housing precarity. So we need a mover and a second. Councillor McLaren, second by Councillor Neal. Do we have any comments from the committee? See, oh, there's Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. I just want to say how excited, happy I am to see these initiatives come forward, including the stipend project. I know that we've talked about encouraging participation of marginalized groups in a number of different activities or different ways of engaging with the city. And while I know we're not suggesting through this pilot that we're heading in that direction across the board, I think it's such an important component that wasn't included before. We maybe would offer transportation or something, but the reality is if people who are struggling, in order for them to even consider being involved, they need to know that their basic needs will be met. And there are many, many people for whom this opportunity will really benefit them further on in their life, as they can put something like participating on this advisory committee on their resume in the future, and develop some administrative skills from all of that, make some connections. And I'm just so happy to see that we're taking this step forward. And some of these items we've discussed a fair bit over the years, and it's nice to see that the work has gone in and that we're getting to that point. So thank you.
Good. Councilor Neal.
Thank you. I'm just curious, Ruth, and if you don't have an answer immediately, that's fine, but I'm curious about, Mary Rita just mentioned transportation, for instance. Do we make transportation available to people on committees if they require it? I'm wondering about, if there's 6 meetings a year, giving them a bus, like you can get a bus pass that has 6 trips on it, for instance, or 12 trips, that would be to get home. And right now on Zoom, we don't have to worry about those things, but hopefully very soon we will be able to worry about those things again. So do we make that available at all currently?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I cannot speak for other committees or like or the broader kind of approach within the clerk's office. What I will say is that to my knowledge, I don't think we actively make transportation available. I know we obviously as a department, if we have focus groups or specific meetings, we always look at those various kind of pieces to support people to be able to access and participate. What I will say is on the technology part and for instance, other pieces, again, I know that kind of same question and was brought forward around kind of nominations and making sure that people, even if we are, and I think there might be a motion in council next week around the hybrid model, but I definitely know that there is a broader conversation around, and again, we would always as a department support everybody that may have any access needs, for instance, to participate in a meeting or may not have access to any technology. We have laptops, and so I'm not giving you a straight answer. Like I cannot speak for the clerk's office, but I do know, and again, also from the EDI office, that we are really kind of, that our wheels are in motion around how do we do this for the honoraria projects. And I know, Councillor Lilly, you were, I think, part of the Housing and Homelessness Committee as well a few weeks ago. We, rather than, and we've looked at this, but rather than, providing a transportation for one and food for the other and childcare for the third, and I know I don't want to sound, but just to kind of, as an example, we really, again, also based on some of the experiences in other communities, wanted to actually provide an honoraria or stipends to make sure that people can use their own, assessments on how they would utilize that. And by no means, as I mentioned, it's not supposed to only cover the few hours of the meeting, but also the preparatory work, the reading, the potential emails. So I hope that answers your question. I will say
it does. And I will ask, in fact, because there's a MAC meeting either next week or the week after. I know that some of the members use the accessible bus, some of them. So I'll just ask whether people are spending money for transportation in order to get to those meetings. If indeed we have a meeting, whether it's for real or on our computer, but it's worth finding out about anyway. Thank you.
That's good. I just want to say that I support the stipend and or the expenditure, however done, and I support the representatives. My point earlier is simply that if the homes don't come out of it, it doesn't amount to anything. You get to express your opinion, but something's got to come out of it. And that has been a constant critique of the committee for years. So I just want to remind staff of that. So we'll do this, I think, by the looks of things, but it's in and of itself, it's not sufficient as far as I'm concerned. So is there any other comments from the committee? Did we get a mover and seconder? I can't remember that. I believe we did. Did we not? Yeah, okay. Just want to be sure. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. Okay, passes unanimously. And Ms. Clerk, unless you've got something to say, the next item is item 8, motions. There are none. There are no notices of motion. That's number 9. Number 10 is other business, none. 11, correspondence, I believe there's none. 12, the date of the next meeting is Thursday, April the 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m. So please note that. 13, adjournment. Who wishes to move that? Councilor McLaren, Councilor Neal. You're so quick. Anyway, all those in favor? We all agree we're going to adjourn. Okay. It's nice to have unanimity. So anyway, best of luck, best of the rest of the evening. Thank you for this. Thank you, staff. Thank you. Bye-bye.